Now's the time to start talking about RCBot2 itself. So, for this chapter, I will talk mostly about useful codes for the program to use and also explain in details how they work. I will also put the whole list of codes in the description so you don't have to manually type if you want to save it in a notepad or something. Let's start with the basic. So, the very first code is RCBot waypoint on, which if you are in a map which have RCBot existed waypoint, it should show it. But if you're on a new map that doesn't have any waypoint, it will be empty. The second simple code is RCBot pathwaypoint on. Once you do that, you could see the little white webs, which are every waypoints connected to nearby ones, which means RCBots, if they are from this flag, he can go in either of these pathways without a problem. So he comes to here and then keep going to the next. Of course, you can always turn them off once you've turned them on. All you need to do is RCBot pathwaypoint off instead of on. It will remove the pathwaypoint, which is the white lines, or you could do the same with RCBot waypoint on instead of off. The next section is about binding RCBot codes to make it way more easier for the waypointers who wants to make maps fully workable with RCBots. And we have at least two recommendations, which is, first of all, you should type bind F1 for the code RCBot waypoint add, and also bind F2 for RCBot waypoint delete. These are your main buttons that you require for making waypoints. So what does it do is, if you will have normally type RCBot waypoint add, a waypoint flag has been added. So if I just move a little bit forward and add another one, they are not connected. If you will remove it, which is RCBot waypoint delete, they will just remove the flag. But now that you bind it, it will make your life way more easier instead of just always go back to the console and type. F1 and F2 is the main buttons for these codes. So F1 for add, F1 for another, and there you go. You already know a little bit of the basic of the main waypoint system. Of course, if you put a flag and you didn't like it, you did bind F2 for the delete, so you can easily remove them. This is the most important one. For the remaining of the code list that I will show you about, we will use a new map that has no waypoint on it, so it can be easier for you all to understand what they do each of them. Another bind button I will also recommend for the waypointers, which in my opinion feel like it's easier, but I am I think the only one using it, which I will recommend others if they want to, but that's just my own opinion. The next waypoint, which is utmost important, let's say I add a new waypoint here, which is very far away from the others, but it doesn't reach because usually it auto-connects. So here's the code. RCBot path waypoint create 1. Make sure you stand on top of the flag for that. So the flag, which is number 8, which says waypoint ID 8, is selected. And now, if you want to connect it to another flag, which is far away, make sure to stand on top of it and type the same code, but instead of 1, you type 2. So now, this waypoint is now connected from 1 to 2. You can also use the same one and just type create 2 on other flags, which will also automatically add. If you want them to be connected as well from the one that is off far away, you retype create 1 to create 2. Now, I will remove this waypoint with my delete code. Now, if you use the bind buttons for these path waypoint create, there's also, it will be way more easier for you to connect without using the console command again. And what I recommend for the create is F3 and F4. RCBot bind F3 for RCBot path waypoint create 1. Bind F4 RCBot path waypoint create 2, which will make it way more easier. So now I add a new waypoint, F3, F4, F3, F4, and it's already automatically. So now this is done. But what if it's a line you don't want it to be connected to another flag? Which I will also recommend a bind for that, which is bind F5 for RCBot path waypoint remove 1, and bind F6 for RCBot path waypoint remove 2. So what does it do? It's the same thing as create. Instead, you remove the line. So if I choose this flag here and I type RCBot path waypoint remove 1, you hear the noise. It's selected to the ID 5. Let's say I want to remove the one that is in angle. So I go to the next flag. I type the same thing, but instead of 1, I type 2. So now, this specific waypoint isn't connected to that other one. If you want to do the same thing back, you gotta retype 1, remove 1 to this one, and 2 to the others. If you want to make it even more simple, again, this is the binding, which I myself recommend, which is F5 to select, F6 to remove. If you want to remove the other ones, well, you can just do it in simple 2 clicks. And this is for the create 1 and remove 2. Also, there's a bit more for these codes that could be useful. A lot of the waypointers has this common problem, which is the stairs. Sometime when you add a waypoint downstairs and one upstairs, most of the time the higher waypoints can connect to the one that are lower, but sometimes the waypoints will think that it will not reach to the one upper floor because of the high level, which makes sense, but the code doesn't know there's stairs. If that happens, then now you can use the RCBot create 1 to RCBot create 2. So now it is easily connected. But there is also another problem that can happen, which is sometimes they auto-connect, but there's something in the way which can make them stop for the RCBots. For now, I will just explain about the situation of the create 1 and remove 2. So the best way to do is, of course, remove 1 and remove 2, so they avoid to get stuck by some props of the map. From now on, the next codes that I will be explaining is more for advanced waypointers, which are still useful but still simple to understand, but can be a bit difficult for the first timers. Alright, the next one is about RCBot Waypoint menu. It will give you a little list which will stick on your screen no matter where you're looking at, which is useful to manipulate or change manually some waypoints flag. Let's take one for example. I'll add 2 flags. 1, 2. Now the first flag is ID number 0, and the second flag is ID number 1. As you can see on the list, the highlight message of flag ID is now the number selected on the flag you're nearby. So it knows you're talking about ID number 1. If I select it by pressing the number next to it on your keyboard, which is 1 for flag ID, you can change its types, as such as no allies. It will change color, and it'll say on the ID, which is now set to no allies. You can add routes by pressing every numbers on the list. As you can see, I can just put everything if I wanted to, but this is not recommended. There is even more. As you can see, there's number 9, which is more. So you can see even more options that could be added for your waypoints. This will all be explained once we will be at this section. The next one is the Waypoint Area. This depends on the game mode of what on the map you're playing. It is not important for Half-Life 2 Deathmatch, but it is important for Day of Defeat Source and Team Fortress 2. The Waypoint Area indicates the capture zone or goals about a specific capture. Let's take for instance this flag. If I put a waypoint on it, it says the area is number 2 next to the ID. So meaning every flags which is set for area 2 will be mostly either for defending or attacking for that specific point. Let's say you want a sniper, which I currently am. You want a sniper defending this flag. So what you could do is you could add a sniper here, or it can be just a machine gunner at a waypoint, set the waypoint into a sniper or a machine gun, and then click 0 for back and 2 for setting the area to number 2. So now bots will come here to defend specifically the flag, while the rest could try to capture it or just defend it. Number 3 is Waypoints Radius. Now this can be different for many waypointers, but this is my own opinions about them. The radius, if I put one flag here, for instance, and select 3, you can increase the radius, which will make sort of a cube-like waypoint. Which means an RCBot, if he comes from, let's say, this waypoint, once he arrives, he doesn't have to come to the straight flag to say he reached the spot. He could be from anywhere around inside this cube. He could come from this corner, he could come from that corner, anywhere you can think inside that cube. It is good for open area like that. This will avoid RCBots literally like come to face and blocking their ways. Depending on the maps, specifically in Day of Defeat Source, there's a lot of buildings areas. So let's say you have this waypoint here, which is a big radius. You can put another waypoint without a radius, so he could easily enter inside the building without problem. Otherwise, if a radius is activated, let's say like this as an example, RCBot could come to that corner and tries, since it's connected to the one inside, to get in from the corner, which will bumps into the walls and tries waste time or being stuck there, which is not a good idea. So when there's tight place, I'll always leave it to 0, which makes it even easier for them to go around. I only recommend radiuses in big space areas, such the main road. So for instance, here to here. There's a lot of space, they can spread, they will not bump into each other's. If there's a pole inside of that, make sure if you put a waypoint here that it is not connected to it, because if the RCBot comes here and needs to go to the waypoint flag, he will just bump into themselves and occasionally maybe he'll be stuck on top of it. Who knows? So make sure to make pathway, which is way more easier and have way access to it. The next one is about yaw, the number 4, which only works on the waypoint flag. If you are not next to an ID, it will not know what it is. For the yaw, well, for instance, let's go find the sniper waypoint. Let's follow the road. The green stands for sniper, so let's go there. As you can see, the waypoint's flag has a sidebar which is pointing in the directions, which is looking by the wall. So meaning, snipers that are coming, they will stand on top of it and aim to the wall. Of course, this is not what we want. The yaw is made for changing the direction of where the waypoint is facing. The solution was to point by the flag over there. So if I type 4 while being on top of the waypoint and you stare that way, it changed the facing direction. So now every RCBot that comes to that sniper spot will now aim that direction. Useful for specific special waypoint types. The next one is about the edit waypoint option number 5. So let's take for instance, this waypoint here has 3 different types, which is no axis, machine gun, and prone. So that means only the allies teams will use machine gun here while being prone. But what if you wanted more than that? Not just one. Instead of manually add a point, put the radius and add these 3 specific special waypoints, all you need to do is press 5 and you can copy this one by standing on top of it and then move to a different direction and hit 3 for pasting. It is done the same way as how the other one is. It's gonna be the same for if, for instance, it also points the direction where you're aiming at, which also saves times instead of just pointing the same directions. You can cut by pressing 1 to stop having the waypoints that you have saved to copy paste. Next one is about number 6, edit path options. So if I select 6, you can delete a path from one to the other. Technically, it is one of these code that I explained earlier, which is path waypoints remove 1 to remove 2. So this is the same way, but manually with the waypoint menu. So from this one I press 1 to this one I press 2. So meaning it is now gone. Simple as that. Finally, the last one, showing all waypoints, which is number 7. I've put many different type of waypoints. As you see, each color means something. This one is route. This one is no allies. The blue one is normal. Defend. No axis. Cover reload. Jump. Crouch. And sniper. So what does it do is, if you have a map full of waypoints, this is only for visual purpose. If you click 7, now it says everything that shows. So if you say you want to remove the sniper, press 6. I mistook. I mean, if you want only sniper to show, press 6. But you can add more if you press other numbers. Let's say I press 5. So now the defend is also appearing. But if I remove both of them, 5 and 6, everything comes back. So yes, this is just for visual purpose. And that's it for the waypoint menu. The next codes are about the same thing as from the waypoint menu, but only manually by the console command. Some people doesn't use the waypoint menu. I do use it sometime, but not for everything. And who knows, some parts may happen like once before when RCBot2 update and the menu wasn't working. So these could be still like helpful codes if you don't have access to the menu. So here are some. Alright, the next one is about the yaw. So let's go for instance to another sniper. Like I explained in the previous one, it is not pointing at the right direction. If you want to aim it in places where there's actual people going in, you can do it manually on the console command as well. If you type RCBot waypoint updateyaw while facing the direction, it will now update it to the right placement. The next one, we've talked about it into the RCBot waypoint menu as well, which is about the setarea waypoints. So let's say this capture zone, if I add a waypoint, it is set to area 1, which is the very first point. Now let's say you don't have the menu list, but you want to add, like for instance here, a defend waypoint, or here a sentry waypoint. So let's add a sentry for some reason. RCBot waypoint, if type sentry, and here is the same but for defend. Alright, so the bots here are supposed to defend the points, but their area is set to 0. So meaning even if this will be captured, bots will still think they can defend here. So to make sure that only happens on the first point, this is where this happens. You type to RCBot waypoint set area and then you type 1. And it changed to 1. Of course, you do that for the specific capture index is supposed to be. This one is area 1. But if I go back to the B side, the B side is supposed to be area type 2. So if I put a waypoint on top of that point, it says area 2. So let's say I put a defend here and a sentry here. So make sure to set area 2 instead of 1. As you can see next to the ID, area is now 2. So that's how important for objectives maps the area are. Now we're going to talk back about the radius, and I'll show the differences. From the menu, if I add one waypoint and use the radius to increase the box of the waypoint, as you can see in the number, it adds by 32 from adding and reducing. But let's say here's a 32 and here's a 64. It's a huge difference. But what if the seller or whatever the placement you want is between 64 and 32? So put yourself in the new location where you want to have this specific waypoint radius, and you gotta type this now: RCBot underscore WPT underscore auto radius, which is the number is what do you want. Let's say I want 50. So now when I'll add a new waypoint, it's gonna be radius 50, no matter. But this is going to be for every single waypoint you're adding. So to make sure you wanna change it, go back to the command console, either put back to 0 if you want to keep going as how it used to be, or type the number that you require for the specific radius. Path waypoints, when you create, automatically add this white junction to tell you that it's connected. But what if you want to add a lot, but you don't want to be all of them connected to each other's? To do that, you're gonna open again the console command and type RCBot W underscore WTPT underscore path distance. It's usually 400, which is the distance that it can find another waypoints and automatically connect the both of the flags. So if I change that to, let's say, 0, well, no matter how close you are, it will not be connected to the other waypoint. But let's say you wanted to have only for like 200, which is like half of the maximum or the default. Let's say I put a waypoint here, it's connected. But if I go back here, it is not connected. So this is one of the easy way as well if you don't want to have multiple waypoints that is either like high grounds or a bit lower or a bit everywhere around if there's like props in the way. This is one way to save time instead of correcting every single junctions. Let's say you added bots for testing while continuing adding waypoints for your project, but then the RCBot is attacking you and kill you. What can you do? Then you should add RCBot no target 1. Doing so, every RCBot in the map will not ignore you from killing you. As you can see, even if he stares at you or sees you, he doesn't shoot anymore. Let's say you have complete a map completely by yourself. You added every waypoint in the map, you think you did everything and it's finished. You want to save this project so you don't lose it, and if you want to share it to other people. So now that it's fully working and you want to make sure that it will work for the next time you come back to the map, you type RCBot waypoint saved. Once you click that, the game says itself, waypoint saved. So meaning you have the file inside the RCBot folders, which every time you open this map, this project you made will be now available to play. In TF2, there is a lot of maps that are reskinned, which could be useful if you don't want to not redo the whole map again, which can save time, but you gotta be aware if there's some modification inside the map itself. Like this map is called Pelican Peak, but in some recent years there's a new map called Penguin Peak, which is now an official map in TF2. So let's say we go there. Now I'm on CTF Penguin Peak, which is the same as Pelican Peak, but just reskinned for the winter theme and maybe Christmassy. Sometimes it can be that, or it can be Halloween, or just other type of weathers. Now, if I check by putting RCBot waypoint on, there is no waypoint, or if I just open chat, it says no waypoint for this map. So, if you want to copy-paste your previous work from Pelican, you'll have to type RCBot waypoint load, and then you type the full map name, so which was CTF underscore Pelican underscore peak. Now that it loaded, it has every single waypoints from Pelican Peak into Penguin Peak, which makes it way more easier. But again, sometimes some maps can have some tiny little modification in corners or in buildings or anywhere, so make sure to recheck everything before you complete it. And then again, you can save it again. The last remaining codes are from the command developer itself, so you don't need RCBot for these, but it's still useful for the RCBot when you want to work with them. So here are the remaining codes for. The next one is about maps that requires timers, and this only works in Team Fortress 2. Some maps are very big, some may be small, but such as Payload, they are very big. When you're working on these maps, sometimes you don't look at the time, even though if you hear the announcer says how many times left remaining. When that happens, sometime when the timer reaches 0 and you got teleported back to spawn by the opposite team, and can be a little bit annoying sometimes. When that happens, there is one solution that can be fixed, but that requires svcheats1. So, to remove the time effect, instead of running back to the cart and push it to the first point to add more time, just type svcheats1 and then you add ent fire space team round timer space disabled. Doing that, and you press enter, the timer magically disappears, and now you have infinite time. So now you can take your own time to do every single corner of the maps and change team to see some spawn rooms that are only unlocked after certain points. It is very useful instead of always force reset and gotta wait for the timer at the setup time. Some maps that are Halloween themes have a section for Hell, which are only available to go through bosses or finding portals that teleport you there. But if you don't have access, instead of just waiting for the portal to come up or the boss to appear, you can simply type noclip, which is svcheats1's requirement. Noclip lets you fly all around the map. You can go through walls and even go out of bound. So with that, it's easier to go to places you shouldn't be. So now, if you go outside of the map, you may find the hell section. Let me go to a zone. So now, it's easier for you to waypoint now that you have this ability to do it. But there are some places like over there that takes you damage when that happens. So again, you do the same thing. You type svcheats1 and then you type Buddha. Once Buddha is on, then you shouldn't be able to die. So if I noclip and come here, I shouldn't be able to die. As you can see, I'm still alive, while I'm supposed to be dying from the hell mode. With that, you can waypoint without a problem here. The next one is an important one for especially Day of Defeat Source and D-Fortress 2, which for some reason Half-Life 2 Deathmatch doesn't have this command for some reason, which looks like it's most important, which is you require svcheats1 as well, and you type map_show spawn points. Doing so, you see every spawn points for each team, which can give you an idea where spawn points can be if a new bot spawn and has no waypoints. For the official maps, they are all grouped up, but if you take some custom maps, be aware of the surrounding. Sometimes a few spawn points can be like separated from the groups, and make sure to not forget them. This one is one of the examples of custom maps that have spawn points in different places, so you can have an idea what it looks like. So if I type back map show spawn points on, okay, we have the group here, but if I look around, especially on the enemy team, it is way spreaded compared to them. So if I join the allies, you'll see how spread it is. I just spawned inside of a building on the top floor, while the others are all the way down there. So it's always be mindful to look for spawn points. Thus conclude the list of useful codes and every explanation for every single one for you to understand how they work properly. Again, the whole list will be in the description so you can save them. And for the next part, the next chapter of this video will be about the RCBot behaviors for the special waypoints that you gave to them.